Sarek. Legendary Ambassador Sarek boards the Enterprise to conclude diplomatic peace talks.
Picard and Riker are talking about Sarek while they wait for him to board.
In dress uniform, which we haven't seen those in a while.
I can tell you that was quite a moment for a young lieutenant standing in the presence of such history. I remember he spoke to me and I just stood there grinning like an idiot.
And this is going to be Sarek's final mission before retiring.
His chief of staff beams up first and says,
Upon his arrival, he will be taken directly to his quarters, where he will remain in seclusion until we reach Ligera 4.
Which is immediately off-putting, and that guy reminded me of Jason Sudeikis from SNL.
Sarek and his wife Perrin beam onto the Enterprise.
When he beams up, he has a very dramatic reveal, including removing his hood, slowly turning to face everybody, and this sweeping music.
Welcome aboard the Enterprise, Ambassador Sarek.
And Sarek says he wants to view the conference room over the requests of his assistants to go straight to his quarters.
And the music tells us something is up, and Patrick Stewart looks directly into the camera, which was kind of weird.
Sarek is leading negotiations between the Federation and the Ligerans, and we see Geordi and Wesley preparing a liquid for the Ligerans to sit in, and it looks cool.
Apparently they really like Hawaiian Punch.
Wesley says he has a date with, according to Geordi, a hot ensign, and I was hoping we'd get more of that subplot, but we don't.
Sarek checks out the room, and he's seemingly getting upset that things aren't ready yet.
I have worked for 93 years in preparation for this meeting. It is vital that no detail be overlooked.
And that brought up a question for me here. Wouldn't it be easier to program a room on the holodeck than to remove all the furniture and wall dressings?
That's what I thought too. And make a giant aquarium of fruit punch.
Well, that's what I thought afterward, was maybe they couldn't get that liquid in there. Maybe that would have been too much to deal with.
Yeah, have you ever looked at the ingredient label on Hawaiian Punch? It just says, who the f*** knows?
Up on the bridge, Picard sounds like a disappointed fanboy.
My expectations of this voyage, sharing his thoughts, memories, his unique understanding of the history he's made.
Picard has a conversation with Sarek's wife, Perrin, to invite her to a concert, which was a little shoehorned way of getting everyone up to speed on Vulcans.
Some people who expect an emotional response often find Vulcans to be quite cold when they're merely being
Logical.
In the conference room, Wesley and Geordi begin arguing, and it's pretty funny.
She's not gonna waste her time on someone like you.
Someone like me?
She's way out of your league.
Since when did you become an expert on women?
Compared to you, every male on this ship is an expert on women.
They're interrupted by Riker, who reacts with his usual squint.
Sarek arrives for the concert.
They're all wearing so many layers of clothes. It really stood out to me. And Brent Spiner shows his very realistic violin playing. Disgusting.
Okay. The guy playing the cello or whatever, I don't think his bow is even close to the strings. But he's jerking it back and forth all over the place.
I'm glad that at least they used a real recording and not some dumb MIDI recording.
Yeah, I guess it could have been worse.
During one of the pieces, Sarek sheds a tear, which for a Vulcan is unthinkable. The shot is an interesting choice because the tear is overlaid over a still image.
Beverly is abnormally angry that Wesley wasn't at the concert, and she slaps him.
It was a good slap.
Away from you!
Then Beverly goes to Troy and says she can't explain her sudden anger. And Troy says that she's heard similar stories from 10 people over the last 2 days. You'd think she would have said something by now.
Sarek's assistant is talking to Data and asks if Picard would be able to negotiate if something happened to Sarek. Tempers are going out of control, which Riker and Worf witness firsthand. The bar fight was actually great. It was probably the best physical confrontation we've seen on this show by far. The hits were really good.
The camera work was really good. I was very impressed and surprised.
Agreed. And I like at the end, Worf seemingly struggling to keep two guys apart, but it looks like they're actually trying to get away from him.
Beverly and Troy theorize that Sarek is behind the weird behavior of the crew on the Enterprise.
Which of course turns out to be correct because that's how this show works, where we just make all these random assumptions that turn out to be true. Picard takes the theory to Sarek's chief of staff, and he asks,
Why am I not affected by Sarek's supposed condition? And Perrin, how could his wife function normally if this theory of yours is correct?
which was a great point that is never explained and leaves a pretty big plot hole. And they try to cover it up by saying the randomness of the events makes it impossible to predict. Data out-Vulcans a Vulcan when he talks to Sarek's assistant,
who admits that he's been using his own telepathy to keep Sarek's condition under control.
The mission is in jeopardy.
Then Picard and Riker start yelling at each other, and even though everyone knows what the hell's going on now, everyone on the bridge looks really confused.
So Picard goes to Sarek's room, and of course Sarek denies everything despite acting emotionally, and Picard decides that he would be unable to perform the negotiation.
The Lagarans trust only me. They will not meet with any other member of the Federation. I must be allowed to complete my mission.
I did like in the conversation that Sarek pointed out
that it is not unusual for a starship to encounter unexplained phenomena. Is your entire argument to be based upon mere coincidence?
which basically described a whole bunch of episodes. But overall, this conversation was one of the high points of this episode, in my opinion. Perrin gives Picard an out to save the conference by doing a mind meld with Sarek.
We would be linked telepathically, sharing our thoughts, becoming in essence one mind.
Beverly is going to monitor Picard, and when Picard said that, I expected some of that ominous music.
That's where I started to wonder if Picard would survive.
Dr. Crusher will monitor our responses.
Sensible precaution.
So Sarek is calm and in control, and Picard is wrestling with Sarek's extreme emotions.
No! It is wrong. It is wrong!
It's some very good acting from Patrick Stewart.
Definitely. He even shows his ability to cry on cue and not use a still image.
I questioned why Sarek's assistant wasn't there to help with his powers, or better yet, why don't they just put Picard to sleep?
The negotiations go well.
Of course, they happen off screen.
And Sarek departs the ship.
Peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
Sarek. Overall?
I liked that, again, there wasn't a world-ending threat, and that it was a more character-focused episode, and it was cool to see Sarek come back in a way that didn't feel like lame fan service. But it took way too long for the characters to catch on that something unusual was happening, although I did like that they figured out what the cause of it was right away at least. I was afraid they were going to drag things out even more. Almost the entire first half felt very drawn out and kind of boring. It got better, but it definitely felt like the episode needed something a bit more substantial in terms of the story. But everything with Picard and Sarek was very good. I would give it a B.
I gave it an A-. It was a pretty good episode, and this is the first one I can think of that really pulled in so much material from the original series, but it didn't feel fan servicey.
Don't forget about the Naked Now, that shining gem of the first season.
Gross. I also liked how the exposure of Vulcan lore and Sarek was peppered throughout conversations between characters. It was a nice, if slightly shoehorned way to get newcomers up to speed. The only Vulcans I can think of we've seen so far is Dr. Selar and that one girl from Coming of Age, but they were just there. Coming at this episode as someone who had only watched this show or no Star Trek prior, I thought it did a really good job of showing the gravity of the situation and how important everything was. I don't know why nobody brought up using another Vulcan to do the mind meld, or bringing up more than one person to hold Sarek's emotions in check, but using Picard added to the drama of the episode, and Patrick Stewart again did a really nice job. But they still play the let's drag it out for a while before we suspect what's happening card, which is a little annoying. But overall, I thought the whole thing was very solid.